And what the ministry purpose means is simply the purpose of serving and helping others. It's one of the 5 purposes of our church, the others being celebration, membership, maturity, and outreach. Now, I want to start by making a rather bold statement. Whatever problems you have, whatever problems you walked through the door with today, Jesus has the answer. Serve others. Whether you're feeling your worst or you're riding high and in first, serve others. Helping others will take you from worst to first. Jesus says serving others is the answer, and we will break that down today. Now, some of you may be thinking, as I was thinking as I wrote this, of course, right? The ministry purpose leader, he's going to talk about serving. Another religious thing for me to do, another obligation, condemnation, condemnation, condemnation. Well, that's not my goal here today, because there is no condemnation in Jesus. But serving others, it almost seems like too simple of an answer. It almost seems not spiritual enough. Did you just lose your job? Serve others. Is your marriage falling apart? Serve others. Are your kids out of control? Serve others. Can't pay your rent, your health failing, don't have enough food, don't have enough clothing, your car broken down? Helping others is the key. Pour out whatever God has given you, even when you're lacking, and He will fill you back up to overflowing. But what if I have high-class problems? What if I'm doing so well and making so much money that I don't have time to serve others? I have 4 car payments to worry about. I have a boat, an RV, $1 million mortgage, a country club membership. My clients are a pain, and don't even get me started with my employees. I barely have time to make it to church once a month. My spouse, my kids, my job, my responsibilities. The answer to all these worries? Serve others. Now, how can I say this? Well, it's partly because I've lived through both types of situations. I've been without and scared, and I've had plenty and feared. How can I keep it all going? Both sets of problems are equally troubling to the person experiencing them. Jesus has the same solution to both sets of problems. Serve others. Now, I've been leading the ministry purpose here at Crescenta Valley Church for about a year, and here's what I see. I'm not taking any credit for it. I'm just reporting what I'm seeing. God is moving in our hearts. Volunteers are responding. A higher percentage of CV Church's members are serving others. Our outreach events are strong and getting stronger. Our ministries are effective and getting more effective. People aren't standing on the sidelines. They're getting involved. And the health of those volunteers who are serving is increasing. And that's not a coincidence. So there's a lot of good happening. Still, many of my days are spent helping people overcome the common obstacles to serving others. Some might call them excuses. I prefer to call them obstacles. Okay, the most common are work, spouse, kids, entertainment. Yet the real factors behind these obstacles are the fundamental attitudes: fear, pride. Fear says, I cannot serve because I'm afraid of getting fired. I'm afraid of not spending enough time with my spouse, missing the latest movie, trip, concert, TV show, whatever it is. In other words, how will I meet all of my needs if I'm serving others? So first, I want to start with how Jesus addresses fear directly in Matthew 6:31 to 33. It's up on the PowerPoint. Let's all read it together. Ready? Begin. So don't worry about these things, saying, what will we eat? What will we drink? What will we wear? These things dominate the thoughts of unbelievers, but your heavenly Father already knows all your needs. Seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and He will give you everything you need. Jesus' audience 2,000 years ago for this passage were people who were struggling to meet life's daily needs. Much of their daily routine was spent amassing enough supplies to get through the day. The poor especially did not have much. So the question of what they would eat tomorrow was very real, especially with seasonal fires, floods, famines. Jesus forces even the poorest in his audience to agree that we must focus on something bigger than mere existence. And that was a radical challenge to his audience then, and it's a challenge to us today. Because if any of us become completely uninterested or unconcerned about supplying our basic needs, and we just disregard them, we and our families will be in immediate trouble, right? We have to go to work. We have to make money to buy food, shelter, clothing, gas, insurance. The list goes on and on. Michael J. Wilkins' commentary on the book of Matthew defines worry in this context as inappropriate or intense feelings of anxiety about the pressing daily matters of life. Inappropriate or intense feelings of anxiety about the pressing daily matters of life. We all have those, right? Whether we're struggling to make ends meet financially or we have great abundance, each situation brings pressing daily matters. When our appropriate concern for those matters becomes inappropriate fear and worry, so much so that we cannot or will not make time for God or for serving others, then we are operating outside of God's values. And today we're going to talk about how we can get back into operating within God's values. On the other hand, we can receive and experience freedom from inappropriate fear and anxiety when we have an appropriate understanding of God's provision balanced with our responsibilities and priorities. So here's something I had double underlined. It's not in your notes, so you can write it in. God frees us to serve others when we trust Him to provide for us to do so. God frees us to serve others when we trust in Him to provide for us to do so. So those with faith in God's promises won't worry. They'll reject the attitudes and pursuits and values of our culture and will take concrete steps toward pursuing God's plans and purposes for our lives. Leon Morris writes in his commentary on the book of Matthew, this attitude, meaning trusting God's provision, removes people from preoccupation with their own worldly success. It discourages the wealthy and the comfortable from concentrating on their own success, and the poor and uncomfortable from concentrating on their own misery. So the question today is, which one are you? Are you comfortable and preoccupied with your worldly success, or are you uncomfortable and concentrating on your misery? Or are you somewhere in between? Someone after last service said, I'm all for. And that on any given day, I can be there as well. So if you haven't already, please take out your notes where you'll find point number 1. When things are at their worst, put God first. When circumstances, relationships, people, places, and things aren't going well, or when we simply feel our worst, we worry. The antidote to worry is putting God's plans and purposes above whatever the thing is that we're worrying about. Many of us know this intellectually, but to actually do this is tough. Practically speaking, I put God first by taking some positive actions, and I've listed 3 in your notes. So to put God first, I review my schedule. Super spiritual, right? I review my schedule. If I have an hour a month to serve others, I start there. If I have 4 hours a day, I start there. Start with what you have. Give God your schedule. Ask God what He wants you to do with the time that you're giving Him. He will stir your heart and He'll show you. He'll also, and this is the part I like, He'll make you more effective in the time left over. So my challenge to all of us is to start giving time to God to serve others and watch what He does with it. He will multiply your time and He will provide for your needs. So what if you're like I am on some days, I can't find time in my schedule? What if you're one of those people that is just completely maxed out? Then pray about your priorities. What is God asking you to cut out or cut back to make room for serving others? Some of us need to adjust our priorities. So I'll give you a silly example. A few years ago, I gave watching football to God. Okay, it's something I love doing. It may sound silly, but it was consuming hours of my time each week. Now, I didn't go completely cold turkey. I gave it up gradually. When I was younger, I literally watched college and pro football all weekend, all Saturday, all Sunday. Then I got married and I had kids, and so I dialed it back to a few games on Saturday, a few games on Sunday. You know, the kids were young, they had long nap times, I could make it work. But then as I started to serve more, I discovered the magical device, the DVR. I could watch my games in about an hour using the little fast forward, and I could do that Saturday, Sunday, get all the games in. But then, because of some financial issues, God asked me to give up my Dish Network and my DVR. Oh no, right? So I fought God very hard on that one. Now, mind you, this is a kid, I grew up in Nebraska. I bleed Husker red. Okay? I had watched every Nebraska football game literally since the day I was born. I was born January 1st, 1971. As soon as my dad got me out of the hospital, he went to watch the national championship game. But I did it. I gave it up. And oddly enough, I don't miss it that much. Now, don't tell that to my friends back in Nebraska, but it freed me to serve Saturday and Sunday mornings, which has been far more fulfilling and fruitful than watching football. Now, I still follow the sport. I still watch the highlights on Saturday night and on Sunday night. I read the articles. It's like my bedtime reading. And there's some college football podcasts that I really like. I can listen to those when I'm doing my emails. So it's still a part of my life, but it doesn't take the time that it used to. Now, am I saying that football is wrong and you can't watch football and serve God? No, I'm not saying that. Obviously not. I'm simply giving you an example of what I had to give up as something that I was putting before God. Football is now in the proper perspective for me. So what is God asking you to give to Him? If you're already giving God time and you're already serving, what is the next step God is stirring in your heart? Say yes to God, put Him first, and He will lift you from feeling your worst. He'll address your circumstances that might seem untenable. This is how God takes us from worst to first. So once you've reviewed your schedule and found time or made time to love God and love others by helping them, then the next step is to make a commitment regarding how you will spend that time, and then stick with it. Make a commitment to the leader you're serving with, and that's letter B, make a commitment. For example, if I'm willing to give 1 hour a month, just 1 hour a month, and I'm faithful in showing up for that 1 hour and fulfilling that commitment, God can use me to help others and make an impact, and I will experience all the blessings that go with that. But on the flip side, if I'm willing to give 10 hours a month, that's 10 times the commitment, but I don't show up half the time, and I don't communicate with the leader as to when I'm showing up or give them enough time to find a replacement when I can't be there, then it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, for that leader to put me in a situation on the front lines helping other people. Commitment and character are far more important to God and to helping others than competency. Commitment and character are far more important to God than competency. There are many, many talented, highly talented, competent people who God cannot utilize to impact the hurting people in our community because of lack of character or lack of commitment. Now, for me, it started 1 hour a week in Joanne's seat doing the PowerPoint. Then that led to a few hours a week on the worship team, which led to a few more hours a week in Kids Place, which led to more hours starting Celebrate Recovery, which led to me being here full time. It was gradual. Each was a step of faith. Each time God asked me to trust Him a little bit more with a little bit more time, and each time I trusted Him with a little bit more, He took care of the stuff that I was giving up. I had to let go of it. It's a process for everyone. Now, Life Development 301 is a seminar that we have here that can help you with that process. It can give you a jump start. The LD 301 Ministry Mentor Team will help you start serving others. Now you can sign up for that using your connection card. It's on the back. It says Life Development Seminar. It starts with 101, which is how you become a member, and then Life Development 201, which is where you develop your spiritual maturity, and then you move on to 301. Now, what's the next step for you in the life development process? Where are you in that process? What's the next commitment God has been asking you to make? He's always asking us to take one step forward, one step forward, one step forward, because He cares about our growth. So once I've reviewed my schedule, I've cleared some time, and I've made commitment to a leader, my next step is to simply show up and begin to serve and help others. And so that's letter C, serve and help others. Now it seems very simple. In most cases, the leader will train you on the job. You start as an apprentice. The goal of the leaders, the administrative staff, the pastors here is to create a situation that allows you to step in and begin serving with a minimum of red tape and overhead. And then once you begin serving, the Holy Spirit works through you to help others, and at the same time, He starts working in you to grow you, change you, stir up all the character issues that God wants to work on and take care of. He cares more about your character than your comfort, and He will use your time serving others to deepen your commitment, grow your character, and teach you new competencies. So to circle back to Matthew 6:33 in our notes that we read earlier, God promises, as you continue sincerely to put His plans and purposes first in your life above everything else, He'll continue to give you everything you need. And that's a powerful promise. So as we get involved in serving, we have to be prepared for our commitment to bring our issues, impurities, and character flaws out in the open, because that's what will happen. We have to be prepared and expect Jesus to challenge our preconceptions of Him, our prejudices toward others, and our pride. Those are the 3 P's. Preconceptions, prejudices, and pride. He will challenge us on all of those. He consistently did that with His followers, and in my experience, He's done that with me, with others I've helped, and with others that I've served alongside. He uses the process of serving to reveal and expose our character flaws so that we can turn them over to Him and so that He can begin to heal them. Now, we see this clearly in Luke 25 through 27. And let me set this up and then we'll read it together. Right after Jesus shared His final meal with His 12 disciples, in one of the most intimate moments that He spent with them, they began to argue about who would betray Him. And then before long, the conversation turns to which of them will be the greatest. So let's go ahead and let's read this together. Ready, begin. Then they began to argue among themselves about who would be the greatest among them. Jesus told them, "In this world the kings and great men lord it over their people, yet they are called friends of the people. But among you it will be different. Those who are the greatest among you should take the lowest rank, and the leader should be like a servant." Who is more important, the one who sits at the table or the one who serves? The one who sits at the table, of course, but not here, for I am among you as one who serves. And I want to focus on applying this passage to us when serving and helping others brings out our worst. How do we respond when we are striving to be first and it brings out our worst? How do we respond when serving others brings out my worst? So on the flip side of your sheet, number 1, focus on the success of others. What we just read in Luke 22:26, those who are the greatest among you should take the lowest rank, and the leader should be like a servant. So why does this work? Let's go back to what Leon Morris said earlier. If we're wealthy and comfortable, our worst comes out when we concentrate on our own success. If we're poor and uncomfortable, our worst comes out when we concentrate on our own misery. The answer to both sets of circumstances is to concentrate not on our situations, but on others. Think about it for a moment. Put yourself in the shoes of the men who were following Jesus. He spends 3 years teaching them, equipping them, training him as his closest followers, putting them through a graduate degree, if you will, in serving others. And then this process stirs in one of them complete betrayal, and in the others varying degrees of rebellion, denial, disbelief, lack of faith. It brought out their flaws, their foibles, their follies, and on the eve of the completion of Jesus' time with them, okay, the Last Supper, which was kind of their graduation dinner, if you will. Some of you just went through some graduations. He's about ready to send them out into the world with their degree in church planning, to start his church, to face persecution, to be martyred, to experience countless miracles, and to change the entire course of history that today we are continuing. Now, at one of the most significant moments in the lives of those 12 men who gave up their lives to follow Jesus, they started arguing over which one of them would be the greatest. Really? Right? I mean, it doesn't seem believable. But of course it is, because we would do the same thing. Right? We do the same thing all the time. Jesus commands us to love Father God and love others, and the action of this is to serve Father God and serve others. And yet in our culture, we're taught that love is a feeling, and as soon as I don't feel loving, then I don't do loving actions. And as soon as I don't feel like serving, I don't serve. So whatever problems or circumstances that you're facing today, you can serve your way out of those problems. When I step forward in faith to help a fellow human being who is struggling with the same things that I'm struggling with, I am acting out of faith. I'm trusting God to move in a situation that I can't fix by myself. And when I do this, God moves, and in the process, the Spirit of God impacts me in return. He impacts my situation. Show of hands. How many of us have been in a financial problem or situation, and then God prompted us to give to someone in greater need than us when we really couldn't afford to give? How many people has that happened to? Hey, quite a few. And then when we gave, purely out of faith and trust, and took care of the need God was prompting us to fill, when we heeded God's stirring in our heart and trusted Him, God released finances back to us and took care of our needs as well. So how many people here that just raise their hands experience that God gave back to us, right? Of course, He does that all the time, right? That's His math. His math is my need plus your need plus Jesus equals enough for all of us, equals abundance. And that's not the world's math, but that's God's math. So how do I respond when serving others brings out the worst in me? 1, I focus on the success of others, and number 2 in your handout, I lead by serving others even when I don't feel like it. Tim and Kathy Keller's revolutionary book, which I highly recommend, called The Meaning of Marriage, Facing the Complexities of Commitment with the Wisdom of God. This book, it will blow you away. This book turns the views of commitment, love, relationships, and feelings upside down. In this book, Timothy and Kathy argue that actions of love, serving others, lead to feelings of love, not vice versa. And that our initial feelings of love that we have with people, romantic feelings, friendship feelings, and in fact the feelings that prompt us to serve even, they're really self-gratifying. They're infatuations. It's not love at all. In other words, my initial feelings of love toward you that our culture calls love, I'm really looking to get my own needs met. These initial feelings are selfish, self-gratifying, and love, biblical love, is far deeper, and it takes time, and it reveals itself only after we've learned to continue the actions of love through the times when the feelings of love are not present. That's the biblical definition of love. Continuing the actions of love through the times when the feelings of love are not present. In other words, the feelings of love that our culture values so highly are not what defines love at all. These feelings aren't facts. Over time, the feelings of love lead to selfish and self-gratifying actions, which leave us empty and ultimately cause us to judge, criticize, and even abhor the very thing and people that we were loving initially. Actions of love, only in the context of commitment, are what lead to a true, deeper, genuine love. So bringing us back now to the two situations that we might find ourselves in. Wealthy and comfortable versus poor and uncomfortable, which, by the way, is people in our church. It's the people that I see in our community. They're at one of those two extremes. When things have gone sideways and I'm poor and uncomfortable, I've lost my job, my relationships with my spouse and children aren't right, and even when I serve others, the very people that I'm trying to serve drive me crazy. What do I do? What do I do? Do I concentrate on my own misery? Do I feel sorry for myself? Do I act out of my negative feelings? Or do I acknowledge them to myself, to God, to trusted advisors? Do I discern the right course of action in each situation and then step forward and serve when every fiber in my being wants to run the other way? And the bottom line is, will I continue to serve others even when I don't feel like it? So recently, I was in that place. Okay, I went to my trusted men, my advisors, and confessed my feelings. And that day, I happened to be on the computer with my daughter, searching for some new music. Okay, we do that sometimes, and some days there's not a lot of appropriate music that we're able to find, unfortunately. But that day, we discovered this really cool Christian hip-hop song called Surrender by Flame and V. Rose, two artists I'd never heard of. But that song moved me to tears because it talked about this exact situation. And good thing was she liked it, so we downloaded it, and now we sing it together. Now, I sing that song every time I want to run because of my feelings, which is a lot of the time. Okay, I'm singing that song a lot these days. And here's the chorus. I'm never gonna run away from you. I open up my heart to you. I'm yours. I'm holding up my flag, and I surrender. Anchor on my ship. You can hold me down. I'm never gonna run. No, I'm never gonna run. Now that song, especially that part about anchor on my ship, you can hold me down. It's giving God permission to keep me steady. Okay, that song, when I hear that, that gives me courage. That gives me hope. Okay, because I know I can stand firm in Jesus because in Him I can do what's right despite my feelings that are all over the place. Now, how about when we're in the other situation, right? When things are going great, I've got money in my pocket, I'm feeling good, and feeling like I got things in control. But then the very feelings of love that I had from work, spouse, family, even the people that I'm helping and serving at church, they start to fade. All the things that perhaps motivated me during the early years and in some ways spurred me on to pursue that wealth and comfort in the first place, when those feelings are gone and my sole focus just becomes my work, spouse, family, my own success, those initial feelings turn dark and bitter. There are stretches when I can feel extremely negative about all of the good things in my life. Church, work, spouse, family. Okay? We're all like that. Question is, do I heed my feelings and discard the good things that I love, or do I persevere when my feelings don't match my commitments? On page 107 and 108 of Timothy Keller's book that we talked about a little bit earlier, he makes a brilliant contrast between our fickle feelings of love versus the deep love that we have for our children. Follow along with me, I'll read it to you. If you have a child, you will find that the biblical pattern of love is forced on you. The biblical pattern of love is forced on you. Your new child is the neediest human being you've ever met. She needs your care every second of the day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You make enormous sacrifices in your life, and yet the child for a very long time gives you nothing in return. And while later the child can give you love and respect, and never does she give you anything like what you've given her. Often older children go through long stretches during which they rebel and fall apart and need enormous investment from you, and again give you nothing in return. But at every turn, whether or not they're giving to you, you give to them. After 18 years of this, after 30 years of this in some cases, even if your child is an unattractive, exactly, yeah. Even if your child is an unattractive person to everybody else, you can't help but love her dearly. Why? Because you've been forced to operate on the biblical pattern. You've been forced to operate on the biblical pattern. You've had to do the actions of love regardless of your feelings, and therefore now you have deep feelings of love, however lovable your child may be or may not be. It's not surprising then that after the children leave home, many marriages fall apart. Why? Because while the parents treated their relationship with their children as a covenant relationship, performing the actions of love until their feelings strengthened, they treated their marriages as a consumer relationship and withdrew their actions of love when they weren't having the feelings. As a result, after 2 decades, their marriages were empty while their love for their children remained strong. So it's how I respond in those stretches when my circumstances stink and my feelings aren't right, when things are at their worst and I'm at my worst, how I respond in those stretches, that defines who I am. It defines who God is in my life, and it defines how big I think God is, that I believe God to be. So I will close today with point number 2 on your handout, which sums up the rest of Matthew 6:33, the last verse in Matthew 6:33. Seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and He will give you everything you need. So you want everything that you need to be taken care of? Then put God first in action and not just in words. And the phrase says, live righteously. Now, living righteously is a very religious sounding word. I don't like that word, but that's another issue for another day. Right? In simple terms, it means to live rightly, or in even simpler terms, to do the right thing. That's what it means. Now, how do I do the right thing when my feelings are all out of whack? How do I do the right thing when my feelings are screaming at me to do the wrong thing? Number 2, when I feel my worst, take contrary action. Take contrary action. Now, how do I take contrary action? I have to recognize my feelings. I have to recognize my feelings. If I don't know what my feelings are, if I don't know that I'm feeling my worst, if I'm feeling my worst, but to everybody that I see, I say, oh, I'm doing great, then I'm denying my feelings. And if I do that, then taking contrary action is going to be pretty difficult, if not impossible. In order to take contrary action, I have to know that the action is contrary to my feelings, which means I have to know what my feelings are in the first place. I have to be clear about what they are. That's why I have trusted advisors. I know many of the men in this church have trusted advisors, men who I can take my feelings to and be honest with them. I have to learn how to express my emotions. It does not come naturally, but it's an important skill for me to learn. So first, I recognize my feelings, and if, like they usually are, they're inaccurate, distorted, and reflect all sorts of hurts, habits, and hang-ups, if my feelings are completely out of whack, I compare them to my commitments with the help of my trusted advisors. And now there may be times when my commitments and my priorities are off. Okay, there may be times when I need to make adjustments in my commitments and priorities. But most of the time, most often, my commitments and priorities are right. They're solid because my commitments and priorities are based on Jesus and His plans and purposes for my life. And as it says on the wall, Jesus is the same today, yesterday, and forever. So because of this truth, I take action based on my commitments, not on my feelings. I acknowledge my feelings, I share them with my advisors, but then I act contrary to my feelings. And when I do this, more often than not, I'll do the right thing. So I recognize my feelings, I act on my commitments and not on my feelings, and last, I deal with my hurts, habits, and hang-ups, which is number C, which is letter C. I deal with my hurts, habits, and hang-ups. Now, why do I have to do this? Because most of us, especially us men, we have no idea what our feelings are. We don't even know that we have feelings. Our feelings are controlling us, and we don't even know it. All we know is that we hurt, that we do things we don't want to do over and over again, and that certain situations and circumstances mess us up repeatedly, and we're completely helpless to change it. So when our hurts, habits, and hang-ups are controlling us, recognizing our feelings and then acting on our commitments instead of our feelings might be nearly impossible. Now, there have been times in my life when I could not do that. I acted on my feelings, not on my commitments, and there was nothing I could do to change. Nothing. So if that's you, then we have a group to help you. It's called Celebrate Recovery, and there you can deal with your hurts, habits, and hang-ups. We also have The Landing, which is Celebrate Recovery for teens, middle school, high school students. It's Fridays, 7 to 9 p.m. There's info on the website or in your bulletin. So to sum up, what you have on your handout that you can take home with you. If I want to go from worst to first, from things being their worst, and from me feeling my worst, to putting God's first and experiencing His best in my life, here's what I need to do. Number one, I put God first by reviewing my schedule, by making a commitment, and by serving and helping others. Then, when serving brings out my worst, which it will, I keep God first by focusing on the success of others and by leading, by serving, even when I don't feel like it. And then finally, when I feel my worst, but I want to finish first, I take contrary action. And I do that by recognizing my feelings, acting on my commitments instead of my feelings, and then dealing with my hurts, habits, and hang-ups. So maybe you're here today and you've never put God first in your life. So point number one, when things are their worst, put God first, is not something that you've ever done. Maybe you're here and you're at your worst. You feel your worst. Your circumstances are at their worst. And you want to put God first by accepting Jesus into your life for the first time. Maybe you're here and saying, God, I've been doing this on my own for too long, and it's not working, and I don't want to do it like this anymore. I want you to be first. So if you would like to make that commitment to Jesus for the first time today, or if you want to recommit your life to Jesus, again, on the connection card, there's a box on the back that says, My Decision Today, and if you mark that decision, you can turn it in the offering plates, you can turn it into the guest boxes in the foyer, or we have a guest center table outside. If you turn in your card there, you get a free book of your choosing, and we will follow up with you and help you take the next steps. So let's go ahead and pray. God, I want to seek you, and I want to put you first in my life. I want to do the right things so that I can receive your blessing, so that I can receive everything that I need that you've promised for me. God, I want to be known as one who serves, one who leads by helping others. But I can't do that on my own. When I try to do that on my own, my priorities get out of whack, and I mess things up. I'm so quick to put things ahead of you. So Lord, please help me become more like you. Please help me put you first. Please help me become and turn my heart to be more like yours. In Jesus' name.